Today I want to make something a little bit different than we normally make on the channel. I want to make a record in the style of the upcoming Charli XCX record, Brat. She's released a bunch of singles off of it so far that are super cool. It's like this cool mix of like electronic music. It's got some hyperpop stuff in there. It's got some house in there. It still feels very pop. And I feel like as we go into summer, it could be cool to do something that's a little bit more house-driven, electronic-driven, still with that pop shine on top. So we're going to dive in and we're going to take a look at how to make a song like Charli XCX today. But before we do, my name is Austin. You're watching Make Pop Music. If you like this video, please make sure that you subscribe. We do new tutorials every single Friday. And then other than that, make sure that you go check out our podcast channel that we just dropped, The Sound Table. There will be a link to that in the description. And after the video, head over to our website, makepopmusic.com. Check out all of the really cool stuff we have over there. But let's dive in and let's take a look at how to make a Charli XCX record. So the first thing that I want to do is just start out with some kind of synth. I'm just going to open up Serum. And for this, there's a couple packs that I already have in mind. One of our good friends of the channel, Ash Taylor, has released a Hyperpop pack that I feel like could be a cool start, just because there are so many like Hyperpop electronic elements. So let's play around. That could be cool for like a bass sound or like a glide sound later. That's pretty nice. Let's turn this down a little bit. I kind of just like this taxi, at least for like a lead. So let's do... One thing that I noticed in several of the Charli XCX songs is there's a lot of use of chords that kind of sit right next to each other. So like that, it just gives it a little bit of dissonance. It feels like it could be major, or it feels like it could be minor. You don't really know until we get later in the song. But I think if we did something like this for now, it'd work. So I'm going to track up something like that. So as for our main synth, what I kind of want to do is layer this up with something that has a little bit of a different texture. So I have that taxi synth that we just used from Ash's Hyperpop pack. By the way, if you haven't ever checked out Ash's stuff, this is not affiliated with him or his store at all, but definitely go check it out. I will leave a link. He has some super, super well-priced packs that are just a little bit different than anything that we offer on Make Pop Music. So we will use some of our stuff later, but if you want to go check out Hyperpop, and we'll probably use the Disclosed pack later as well, go check those out. I think it's just ashtaylormusic.com, but there will be a link below. But let's play around with a slightly different sound. I kind of want to open up Lush, and maybe I can find a cool kind of pluck. I don't know. Let's see if anything's... It's a little bit much. That could work. It's a little bit too wet. That could be nice. Yeah, honestly, let's just layer that up. And let's just hear how that sounds. Cool. All right, so I made a couple little tweaks. I basically just boosted a lot of high end and just have it a little bit more smacky. So that's feeling pretty good for now. I think what I want to do next is come up with some kind of little bass line. So I'm just going to go to a bass folder right here. Let's add a track. We'll keep using Serum. That's totally fine. And then for this, I kind of just want something that we can almost use as like that kind of typical triplet bass. Let's try Hyperpop. Actually, let's try Disclosed. I feel like this is based around Disclosure, I'm assuming. And they have a bunch of house songs that I think could be cool if there's a bass that kind of feels like it could be similar. So, oh, damn, that was like the first one I picked. That's pretty nice, actually. Let's see. I think I want to use that. So let's just do, yeah, so let's just track up a little triplet vibe. What I wanted to do with a little bit of processing was just make this a little bit harder, scoop some of these mids out so it's a little bit wackier. And then I am just adding some kickstart because as we start sidechaining things, I'm going to want that pumping. All right. I think next, let's go ahead and just layer that with one extra sound that I'll kind of pull and push in. It won't be there the entire time, but as we build the song, we can just add it as like an extra little layer. We can go back to the Hyperpop pack, actually. Let's just listen to some things. It's a little much. That's kind of a cool sound, actually. I don't know if that's exactly what we're going for. Let's go like... That's kind of nice. Let's turn that portamento down a little bit. All right, let's try that. Okay, so I have the musical bed for what I assume will be most of the verse. I think what I want to do is just structure this out just a hair. So we'll do something like this. And then I want to pull in some drums. So I'm going to load in a drum rack with just some different kind of house drums. So here's what I got. I just pulled this little one-shot kick out of Splice, like a 909 snare. I don't know if I'm going to use that, but I have it. And then just like a 909 clap. So I think we'll just do like a little 4 on the floor, and I'll probably filter it for a lot of this verse. So it'll be 4 on the floor kick and snare on the 2 and 4. So now that I've got that in there, I'm just going to use some Pro Q just to filter this out. So I'm also going to add this little 909 style hat. It's basically just out of our Y2K sample and preset pack. And this is just called the Open Hat Aggro. And I'm again filtering this out a little bit for the verse. That feels pretty good. The only other thing I think I want for this verse is like some kind of sliding, like Giuseppe Stein style lead, because I know that that's on something like Von Dutch. I just think it could be a nice, cool little topper. I pulled this sound out of our Lush pack. It's called Scrape. It's just a lead. And I have some Portamento just doing some sliding. And it just has some kickstart on it as well, just to kind of swell it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in that little sliding stinger when I pull in that bass layer that we had earlier. So when that comes in, I'm going to have this. Really kind of like Giuseppe Stein vibes on that. That feels pretty good for a verse, honestly. I think for the chorus, what I'll do is honestly just have like a 4 on the floor kick where I don't have it nearly as filtered. And for this, I'm going to go to more like a kind of like a neuro bass, something that has like a lot of grit and a lot of texture. So the first thing that I want to add over that little 4 on the floor kick is I just want to add a sub bass. This doesn't have to be anything too crazy. I'm just going to make one real quick. So I'll go to analog. I will go to analog BD sign. Let's give it a little bit of saturation. Cool, that'll work. So I'm just going to play the root notes on that and then layer that up with some kind of bass that has texture. Let's hear what this pre-chorus sounds like now. This bass is really where all the texture's coming from. It's called Neurotic Adventure Time. It's out of our Lush pack. I believe it's one that our friend Saptic made for us. This thing is crazy, and I just wanted it super, super wide. So what I did was added some Haas effect just to spread it out. It gives it like that wide, disorienting kind of vibe. I want to add one more bass on top of that, though. I want to add something else that has some grit. Here's one extra little layer. This is just a bass patch out of Ash's Hyperpop Volume 2 again. It's really gritty. What I do want to do is like ease up on that attack a little bit. I don't really need that transient, so let's hear that now. All right, let's go to the chorus. So what I want to do for the chorus is build it up. We're going to have that traditional 4 on the floor kick, snare on the 2 and 4, and that like house hat happening on the and. And then I might have a couple extra little perk loops in there. So here's what we have now for the chorus drums. I have that same kick and that same kind of 909 snare from earlier. I have that same kind of aggressive back hat, but then I'm adding these 2 extra layers right here. I have this little sweet tooth percussion loop that I got. Just a traditional kind of house loop, but it has some cool filtering and phasing on it. And then I have this extra little kind of hat tambourine loop. And those are both being sidechained. It's kind of baked into the sample already. So once we put all that together, we get this really nice kind of groovy house rhythm. One thing that I also did was I ended up just dragging that percussion loop over to this verse as well. I just felt like it was nice for the second half. It's really subtle, but it adds a nice little bit of texture. So I think that the drums are pretty good now. What I want to do is kind of get something similar happening with these basses, but I want it to feel bigger. So I'm going to drag a bunch of stuff in and really just layer sounds until we can get a really big, kind of gnarly bass / ARP. So we still have that neurotic adventure doing the same thing, but it's down an octave now just to be a little bit gnarlier. We still have that sub bass, but I've made it a little bit louder. And now we're layering this bass. It's called Jover. It is from the Lush pack off of our website as well. If you've never checked out Lush, it's crazy. There's like 300 presets in there, and this is one of them. It's basically another kind of Reese bass, but what I ended up doing on this one was adding trance gate. So this is what it sounds like. We've got Kickstart doing that swelling, and then I love this plugin. I use it all the time. It's called Trance Gate. And then one thing that I like to do when I do a trance gate is add a limiter so I can get a little bit of extra punch out of it. So all of those together give us this gnarly bass. Now let's go ahead and mix that. We still have that stinger. But what we're doing is we're now layering that. So I have this little ARP that I've pulled out of, we did a pack for Vital a while ago. This is just a Y2K pack. It's samples and presets. And one of the presets in there is this little synth ARP. Very 90s and 2000s inspired, really reminds me of 90s house. One thing that I wanted to do was add a little bit of extra space. So I added spaced out to give it some reverb and delay, added kickstart, and then just some EQ. Doing the same thing as that little scrape stinger, and then I'm layering that one more time with this preset called Till Death Do Us Party out of Ash's Hyperpop pack, doing the same thing. So the big thing with these Charli XCX songs is they feel really minimal, like a lot of house tracks, but it really is about kind of capturing a vibe of, can you get something that feels really big and really intense? So this is what the chorus sounds like now. Then we just go into essentially what would be like another verse, using everything that we already have. So now I want to track up some vocals, essentially to write a Charli XCX song. It's pretty poppy. It's pretty melody driven. Most of the songs off of the album so far have been really like based around her being an it girl and everybody else kind of not being. So that's what I am doing for the vocals on this. I'm going to track those and get right back to this. The first thing that I want to talk about vocally that I tracked is it's this little vocal chop. I've heard this used in a bunch of Charli XCX stuff. So it's just me literally saying the word I. What I'm doing though is quite a bit of processing. So all of these Charli XCX songs are pretty tuned. So I've got the retune speed at like 3. And for this one, I'm automating that 4 min. As it goes, it'll swell down. And then for the verse, it'll kind of sit there. So that's a lot of that tone and texture. Let me show you everything else that's on this. So we have a little bit of Decapitator adding some distortion and grit. We're scooping out quite a bit of the low end because I don't really need any of that. We're de-essing, which is not really necessary since there's no sibilance. We're adding quite a bit of compression. And then the really important thing is this 910 harmonizer. So I have it on the vocal doubler setting, mix at like 58%. Of course, we got to have kickstart. And then the last thing is digitalis. This is just kind of distorting it, making it kind of crumble apart. And we are just automating this up. And then that basically becomes a little percussive element throughout most of this song. So now we have that. That's a big thing that you're going to hear in a lot of those Charli XCX songs. As far as the vocal, let's go ahead and talk. So I'll turn off everything. This is what the vocal was like when I tracked it in. I'm just using the Loudon Audio Eden on the forward setting. That's going into the Rupert Neve Designs Newton channel strip with some EQ and some red silk. And then I have it going through the AudioScape 1176 Rev D and the AudioScape Opto comp, both doing probably 3 to 5 dB of compression. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. One thing is the vocals are very hard tuned, so I'm tuning it in very audio. And then I'm also just slapping on auto-tune with a pretty quick retune speed, right? So I've got everything at 3%, a little bit of formant just to sound a little bit more like Charli. And then I'm just boosting some gain with kilohertz gain. This is really where it starts to take shape, is adding a little bit of saturation. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. We're gonna do a little bit of DS just to kind of soothe some of that distortion that we've added. We're gonna add a little bit of EQ just to get rid of some gnarly stuff. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. Especially with so much distortion that we've added. We've got some more compression. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. Super compressed vocals on this album. We have the vocal thickener setting on the 910 harmonizer from Eventide. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. That really is where a lot of that texture and tone comes from. We've got one last little de-esser, and then we've got kickstart. And this is really cool. On a lot of house songs, the vocals will be slightly sidechained to the kick. So we're just doing that with kickstart. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. Now it's time for wet effects. We have an eighth note delay. This is something that I heard a lot in her song. I believe it was Von Dutch. Sounds a little bit like this. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. We have a short reverb. I gotta run, I don't have the time to. We have a quarter note delay that sits back there, and then we have our parallel widener, which is just the Roland Dimension D, adding a little bit of extra width and space. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. So now with all of those, you get this vocal that sounds super processed, almost like a hyperpop vocal. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. Heard your last drop. And under the mix, it sounds really, really nice. I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. The only other real vocal production stuff that we have are these little delay throws. So I have an eighth note delay just using repeater. It's just on an eighth note spread out, so it is a wide delay. And then I have a little bit of a hollow vintage verb doing like a 2-second room. And then just a little bit of EQ to sculpt that up. And that's just happening at the end of a phrase. So like this. Last drop, it was everything that I expected. I ain't gonna front if... So we have some stuff like that happens throughout the song. We have these little moments of like a vocal response. For a long time, so fast. That little thing is cool. It's basically just the same thing as the lead vocal track, but the format is shifted down quite a bit in auto-tune to give it that really kind of monstery sounding voice. And then I'm just dragging up the harmonizer to 100% wet. So it's super wide, and then I'm adding spaced out on this pretty spacey, reverby delay, and then just kickstarting that as well. And I just do that a couple times throughout it. Other than that, that's pretty much it. We have a quarter note delay here. It's just the same thing as any delay throw. And then that's literally it. Then we go into a little pre-chorus where I am just doing that repetitive thing. 'Cause I'm And so for this is really where I start stacking vocals. So I did an extra dub take for the left and an extra dub take for the right. And for these, I'm not using decapitator and I'm not using the harmonizer and I'm not compressing or EQing these nearly as aggressively. They're still super tuned, but they are much more natural sounding in terms of like the really weird creative effects. So it's essentially just some EQ, sculpting out some of those lows, and then just some de-essing. And that's really all I'm doing with my new vocal chain now that I've got all of the outboard gear. Then we've got the eighth note delay, the short reverb, and the long reverb, and I'm not even really using the parallel widener. So now we have that on the left and right, panned out 100% each. And then when we go into the chorus, I'm keeping those dubs. So I have my lead vocal up the middle that's like hyper processed, and then I have my dubs on the side that are much less processed. Paparazzi flashing when I step out. And then I just have this little washy reverb down here. So what I'm doing with that is tuning everything up an octave inside of Auto-Tune right here with Transpose. And then I just have this reverb from Eventide called the Ultra Reverb. And then I'm just sidechaining that so it can give me this weird little almost like a monster reverb that happens. And then I have my low wide vocals. You've heard these a million times on the channel. Tune down an octave, doubler from waves is spreading it out, and that's it. And then those big throws that we talked about earlier. And that is everything that I think needs to be done for a Charli XCX record. So now that I've done that, let me actually show you what this sounds like. Here's everything that goes into a Charli XCX song. Again, if you want to check out a lot of these sounds, they're either going to be from our Y2K pack or our Lush pack on makepopmusic.com, or they're going to be from the Hyperpop or Disclosed pack off of Ash's website. So go check it out, show Ash some love. Let's go ahead and listen to this.
I gotta run, I don't have the time to get invested. Heard your last drop, it was everything that I expected. I ain't gonna front, if I signed you I would have to dead it. Now your followers see your bullshit that you're still projecting. You're not next up, I've been running this shit for a long time. So fess up, you buy streams and I'm selling out worldwide. I don't wanna compete, but you should know I'm the blueprint. I'm not calling you a bitch, but it's not my fault if the shoe fits. Cause I'm it. Cause I'm it. Paparazzi flashing when I step out. Club is going crazy with my sets out. I got classics stacked on classics, I ain't left out. I go platinum after platinum, still no sell out. Cause I'm it.
And there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let us know what videos you want to see in the comments down below, because we are taking your suggestions. We have a couple more how to makes coming on the way. We have some gear review stuff coming on the way. So definitely make sure that you subscribe. We have these videos every single Friday. Other than that, head over to makepopmusic.com. We have a ton of content over there, including sample packs, preset packs, MIDI packs. We have start to finish production courses, and we have a bunch of free downloads that you can have. So go check that out. There will be a link to everything in the description. Other than that, that will do it for this video. I'll see you guys next week. And until then, much love. Peace.